Welcome to Yehoshua's Daf Yomi Shiur, where the Daf continues daily until the complete revelation of Mashiach ben David, Messiah, son of David. Today we'll be studying Tractate Chullin, page 95, starting with 95a, and the last few words of 94b were starting the story, which are Hahu Tabacha Amar Le Lechavrei. There was a certain Jewish butcher who said to another individual, and now we're on top of 95a with the words I hava payas daminai. Okay, I hava payas daminai mi lo safilach mishor shel patam David Ismoil amar le achli shufre amar le minalach amar le dezavan ploni goy usifa li amar le tre avdi ve'ahu trefa hava. If you would have made peace with me yesterday, wouldn't I have given you a cut from the fattened bowl that I prepared yesterday? The other individual said to him, Nevertheless, I ate from the finest of the fine of that bull that you prepared. The butcher said to him, From where did you get a piece? The other said to him, So-and-so, the Gentile, bought it and fed it to me. The butcher said to him, I prepared 2 bulls yesterday. One was kosher, but the one you ate was a treifa, which is why I sold it to the Gentile. Amar Rabbi, b'shvil shoyte zeh, she'asa shelo kehoigen anu netzo kol hamakoilin. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi said, when you heard this incident, because of this imbecile who acted improperly and sold non-kosher meat to the Gentile butcher without publicizing that he did so, should we forbid all of the meat from Gentile butcher shops in the city? Rabbi Letame de Amar Makolim v'Tavachi Yisrael Vasarim Tze B'Yad Goy Muto. The Gemara notes that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi conforms to his standard line of reasoning. As Yehuda Hanasi said, if there are butcher shops in a city and Jewish butchers prepare the meat, any meat found in the possession of a Gentile, meaning in a Gentile's butcher shop, is permitted. There is no concern that the meat is from an animal that was a treifa, because the Jewish butcher would not have sold it to a Gentile to sell it in his butcher shop. Ika de Amri Amar Rabbi mipnei shoyte zeh dikaven tzorei chavrei anu ne'asor kol hamakoilin. The Gemara presents an alternative version of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi's reaction to the incident cited above. There are those who say that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi said, because of this imbecile who intended only to cause distress to his fellow, should we forbid all of the meat from Gentile butcher shops? That butcher was presumably lying about the meat having been from a treifa. Taima di kaven tzorei lechavrei alav hachiyasu v'tanya Rabbi Omer makoilin v'Tavachi Yisrael basarim zmiyad goy muto shani hacha ditchazek usuram. The Gemara notes that the reason that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi considers the meat to be kosher is that the butcher intended only to cause distress to his fellow. This indicates that if that were not so, all the meat in the Gentile butcher shops would be forbidden. But isn't it taught in the Braita that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi said, if there are butcher shops in a city and Jewish butchers prepare the meat, any meat found in the possession of a Gentile is permitted? The Gemara answers it is different here because it has been established that there is forbidden meat being sold in the butcher shops. Since it is known that a butcher sold non-kosher meat to a Gentile, proprietor of a butcher shop, one must be concerned that this was not an isolated incident. Okay. Very good. Okay, weiter. Where were we? The Gemara notes that the reason that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi considers the meat, I probably said it, but let's just review it anyway. The Gemara notes that the reason Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi considers the meat to be kosher is that the butcher intended only to cause distress to his fellow. This indicates that if it were not so, all the meat in the Gentile butcher shops would be forbidden. But isn't it taught in Brayta that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi said, if there are butcher shops in a city where Jewish butchers prepare the meat, any meat found in the possession of a Gentile is permitted? The Gemara answers it is different here because it has been established that there is forbidden meat being sold in the butcher shop. Since it is known that a Jewish butcher sold non-kosher meat to a Gentile proprietor of a butcher shop, one must be concerned that this was not an isolated incident. Amarav Basar Kevon Shinis Alim Min Ha'ayin Asur. Rabbi Omer Makoy Limit Bachis Israel Basar Anim Sabiyad Goy Mutav Anim Sabiyad Goy Shani. Apropos meat in the possession of a Gentile, the Gemara cites a related discussion. Okay, let's see the related discussion. Apropos, yes, okay. Rav says, Amar Rav, Basa Kevin Shamanayin, also may say Rabbi Yomer according to Israel. Right, okay. Rav says, once meat is obscured from sight and unsupervised, it is forbidden, as one must be concerned that it was exchanged for non-kosher meat. The Gemara raises an objection based on a bride. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi said, if there are butcher shops in the city and Jewish butchers prepare the meat, any meat found in the possession of a Gentile is permitted. The Gemara answers, meat found in the possession of a Gentile is different, because the meat was not left unsupervised. Toshima, Teisha Chanuyo is Kulan Moiches Bosel Shchuto Viachas Moiches Bosel Nevelo Velokach Viachas Mea Bernadea Mezmin Lokach Speko also Ubenimzo Halech Acharoiv Achanami Benimzo Biad Goi. The Gemara raises another objection to the statement of Rav. Come in here the following Braita with regard to 9 stores in the city, all of which sell kosher meat from a slaughtered animal, and one other store sells meat from an unslaughtered animal carcass. And an individual purchased meat from one of the stores and he does not know from which store he purchased the meat. In this case of uncertainty, the meat is forbidden. But in the case of meat found outside, follow the majority. Consequently, since most of the stores sell kosher meat, it may be assumed that the meat found outside is kosher, which contradicts Rav's statement that meat that was left unsupervised is forbidden. The Gemara answers here also, the Braita is referring to a case where the meat was not supervised, but rather was found in the possession of a Gentile. Okay, Tashima Matzaba Basa Imchai The Gemara cites another challenge to the opinion of Rav. Come in here the following Mishnah, Machshirin 2:9. If one found meat in a city inhabited by both Yidden and non-Yidden, if the meat is raw, follow the majority of butchers. So that if the majority of the butchers are Jewish, the meat is presumed to be kosher. If the meat is cooked, follow the majority of meat eaters, because even if the majority of the butchers are Jewish, if the meat was cooked by a Gentile, it is forbidden. The Mishnah indicates that there are circumstances when the meat is permitted, even though it was obscured from sight. Either goy nokit lei, the Israel nokit lei, mach by a skin on beoimid roehu. And if you would say that here also is referring to a case where the meat is found in possession of a Gentile, why does the Braita say that if the meat is cooked, one should follow the majority of meat eaters? Let us see whether the Gentile is holding it or excuse me, or whether a Jew is holding it. The Gemara answers that here we are dealing with a case where the meat was on the ground, but someone was standing and watching it from the time it was dropped on the ground, so that it was never left unsupervised. Yet the person watching does not know whether it was dropped by a Jew or a Gentile, and therefore a determination must be made upon the majority of the people in the city. The Gemara cites another challenge to the opinion of Rav from Mishnah in Shekalim 19a. Come in here. With regard to meat found in the outlying areas outside of Jerusalem, if it is found as whole limbs, the meat presumably comes from carcasses of animals that were not properly slaughtered, as carcasses were generally cut up into full limbs and fed to dogs or sold to Gentiles. But if it is small pieces, it is presumably kosher and permitted to be eaten, as kosher meat was ordinarily cut up into small pieces. The Mishnah indicates that even though the meat was obscured from sight, it remains permitted. And if you would say that here also is referring to a case where someone was standing and watching it, why is it assumed to be from a carcass if it is cut into whole limbs? Midehu taima amarav elarav ha'itmar Allah rav amar mutaras mishum nevelo levi amar mutaras bechila. The Gemara answers the Mishnah requires explanation only according to Rav, but it wasn't stated with regard to that Mishnah. Rav says that the correct version of that Mishnah is that the small pieces of the meat are permitted, in that they are not considered impure, and that the one who eats them is not liable to be flogged, as would be the case if it were meat from a carcass. But it is not actually permitted to eat the meat, due to the fact that it was obscured from sight. Levi says the Mishnah means to say that the small pieces of meat are even permitted to be eaten. Derav Havel Amabara de Ishtam Taya Hazilahu Gabra de Haka. Turning to 95b. Machavereshe Naval Mine Azalesi Silta. Shedazik Train Amara Vavina Mihachizerinu Nihele. Okay, so the Gemara comments that we're back on 95a now. The Gemara comments, and this statement of Rav that meat was obscured from sight, is forbidden, was not stated explicitly by Rav. Rather, it was stated that he held this opinion based on an inference from a different statement of Rav, as Rav was one sitting on the ford of the Ishtitit river, and he saw a certain man who was, now 95b now, top of the page, who was cleaning the head of an animal in the river, and the head fell from him. He went and brought a basket, and the basket into the river, and he pulled out 2 animal heads. Rav said to him, does it commonly happen this way that one loses one item and finds 2? Just as one of the animal heads is not the one you dropped, it is possible that neither of them is one you dropped. Therefore, Rav rendered both of them forbidden to him. All right, we'll stop here.